So before I do start, I want to just say a bit about what Excel is. So Excel is basically a digital spreadsheet. So if you're not at all familiar with it, um, it is a digital spreadsheet. It comes with an Microsoft Office package. So if you have like something like Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, you will also have Microsoft Excel. If you don't have Microsoft Office, Google Sheets is a very similar program, but it's online and it's associated with a Google account, and that is completely free. So we'll cover Excel today, but just know that a lot of the stuff that we will cover on here will be very, very similar. So if you don't have this, hopefully this would still be helpful in case you want to use Google Sheets. So I'll start by just sharing my screen, and I'm going to open right here. This is what Microsoft Excel looks like, newest version. So I'll open it up. And when I open it up, you'll see it first. If you haven't used it before, you won't have any of these, but I have all these recent files. So when you first open it up, you have this page. You can open any recent files you have. You can also choose from a template. So there's some basic templates you might want to use that would make the first things you want to use on Excel. The first one is just a blank template, so that's just going to give you a completely blank spreadsheet. But there's also options to go to more templates, and you can see that you can make a list or create a total list. So for expenses, you can track tasks, create a budget, all sorts of things like that. I think that's what a lot of people would use it for, to track expenses, stuff like that. It can be a really handy tool for tracking those things. There's also the option, if you are new to the app, to take the tour, and that will kind of walk you through a lot of the things that come along with the app. So if after this you're still a bit confused, you open it up, you can also take the tour. But for now, we will just open up a blank workbook. So when we open up a blank workbook, here we are, we just see a giant spreadsheet. When you're in an Excel worksheet, it's basically never ending. You could scroll on for a really long time. So if you had a lot of data to input and fill in here, you wouldn't ever have to worry about running out of space. It basically continues on for as long as you need it. So this is a great way to track stuff over long periods of time if you just want to continue a list of tracking some sort of maybe expense or something. On both axes, both this, which is the numbered one, it's like what Y and X axis, and up here the lettered one, they're never ending. Actually, no, the lettered one it goes to X, but it actually will double up and repeat once you get far enough along that side. So here we are, and we have all these little cells, is what they're known as. So every single little box here is a cell, and you can input data into it. To kind of navigate this spreadsheet, and if you want to fill it in, you can do that in one of two ways. You can either just click around, and anywhere you click, you will highlight a cell. If I highlight this cell, I can start typing in it, and then to enter that data, I can just click away. The other way to navigate this is you can just use your arrow keys on your keyboard. So I could just go, I'm not using my mouse anymore. I'm just using my arrow keys on my keyboard to move this little highlighted box around. And you'll see that as you're moving around, right up here in the left corner, it's going to tell you what cell you're in. So this is C14. If I move, I'm in D14, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll also be able to look to see where you're at. And as you're moving too, if you ever get kind of lost, even if I were to move really far down, see this top area does not move, and neither do these numbers on the side. So wherever I am, it'll also highlight here and here. I'll also always be able to know how far down or how far in I am in a cell, even if I can't see the very top, like I guess, corner of my sheet, which is right 1A. Okay. So now when you're in here, if you were to say enter data and you wanted to just select more than one cell. So say I want to type in a 1, but I also want to fill that out into multiple places. You can actually select a whole bunch of cells. And how you do this, there's two ways of doing this. The first is just with your mouse. You can just click a cell, click and drag, and then that will select a huge amount of cells here, as many as you want. If you keep dragging down, it will drag further and further down, and you can just select all of those things. The other way you can do that is by clicking the Shift key on your keyboard and then using your arrows. And if I click Shift and start using my arrow keys, I can now select without my mouse, just by using my arrow keys to expand the area that I'm selecting. So that's Shift and then using your arrow. So Shift basically indicates that you want to select more than one thing, and you can continually just select more cells as you click Shift. Now, another way to kind of move down your list, so this is really useful if you're entering kind of data quickly. So if you're referring to a list and you're trying to enter data, you could just enter, say, a 1 and then click on the next cell and enter a 2 and click on the next one. The easier way of doing this is just to enter data. So if I did 4 and then click the return or enter key on your keyboard, when I do that, it will automatically bring me to the next row down, and I can continue to enter my data. So it makes it a bit easier, especially if you want to work quick. You can kind of just keep doing that as you fill stuff out. And then if you want to do the same thing, but move to the right, so move across the page, you can click the Tab button, and that does basically the same thing, but across the page rather than down the page. So those are a little few shortcuts you can use rather than just clicking around, which in my case bothers my wrist. So I try to use as many shortcuts as possible. Now, the other thing you can do is you can select whole rows or whole columns. And you can do that in one of two ways. Either you can go to the very top of the row or column, I guess, and you can put your mouse right over it. So if I put it right over A, we'll see that A becomes highlighted in green and it becomes an arrow. And if I were to click that, it will highlight the entire area down to the bottom of my spreadsheet. Same for when you're looking on the across. If I were to click on 2 here, it's going to select everything across the board. And you can do that just by clicking with your mouse. There's also the option to do it with a keyboard shortcut. And the keyboard shortcut is Control Space on a Windows computer, and it is Command Space on a Mac. So if I right click that, and it's Control Space on either, sorry. And that will select down the row if I were to click that there. And just an FYI, all of these shortcuts, I actually have a website that has them all listed out for both Mac and Windows, which I will send along. So I know I'm saying these and there's no possible way you're going to remember them. So don't worry, those will be sent out with the video. So you'll have access to those. I'm just letting you know that there's shortcuts for them. But in terms of what the shortcuts are, you'll get a list. So you don't have to remember exactly what I'm saying, because that would be impossible. Okay. So next, that's how you kind of can fill out data. So you just, you select whatever cell you want and you put whatever information you want in them. The next thing is formatting your cells. So you filled them out, and say you wrote something in this first cell here, and it was number of horses. But see how it's this column is too narrow to fit in the words, so I can't actually see all of what it says. If something like that happens and you want to reformat your cells so that they're wider or otherwise deeper, you can just go up to the top here, and you'll see that if you toggle your mouse right in between the lines of the two cells, you'll get this little symbol that looks like 2 arrows on either side. And if I click and drag, I can actually change how big this is. So I can, fit the whole wording that I put in here, so I don't have to, click on it to see what it says. I can actually just see it in full as it is. That's just handy when you're dealing with longer titles for areas. You don't need to feel the pressure to try to fit something into that size. You can actually just make it bigger so you can see the full text that's there. Same goes for here. I could make this deeper if there's multiple rows to what I'm writing. Now, say I had a situation where there was, like, this axis here is someone's name, and this is their grade, right? So I want to put someone's name, and this is just not an example you'd use, but I want to put their grade, and I want to list a bunch of grades. So they had multiple tests, whatever, and I was trying to list multiple grades, and I wanted to associate all three of these with Ethan, and I didn't want to have to write Ethan, Ethan, Ethan 3 times in a row. What you can do instead is you can merge cells. So here is this group of data, and I can actually highlight this group of cells right here, and I can merge those cells so they become one single cell. So in order to do this, you can right-click on here, and there should be an option. Sorry, I'm trying to find this. Should be an option to merge this, but I'm not seeing it right now. Sorry, guys.
Format?
Yeah, maybe format.
Oh, merge cells, text control. Under alignment at the bottom.
Oh yeah, so great. So sorry. So yeah, so if I right click on it and I click, where was I? I was on format cells, and I go into here in alignment, I can see that there's merge cells. I can do that. And now that is one cell that is representing all of this data. So that's helpful. Yeah, if you're putting a kind of a category, it's one person's name, but there's multiple grades or whatever, multiple dates, multiple expenses. Say it's, you know, groceries, and you want to, this might make more sense. And you want to select, you know, different costs for the different groceries you spent or something. You can do it that way. So now all of these cells are associated with this single cell rather than having to repeat groceries every single time you enter that. So that's a handy tool, and that's how you merge cells into one giant cell like that if you need to do it.
And also, Macaulay, if you look at the home tab next to, in the middle, there's like a merge and center button.
Oh, perfect. Right. That's what I was looking for before. Sorry. I'm used to the old one. So again, yeah, if I did this here, we can go to merge and center, and that will do it in a much easier way. So thank you. Yes, you just click merge and center, and that will merge those cells for you right there. And then you can type in any data you have associated with that there. So let's actually call this something different. Okay, so that's merging cells. Now, we talked about entering data, right? You just enter whatever amount you want, and then you can either click away or that. Now, if for some reason you wanted to enter the same data in multiple cells, say you wanted to put the name like Ethan in a bunch of cells going down the list, what you can do is you'll write that name into one cell, and then what you'll do is you'll select, go to the very corner of the cell, and when this little plus kind of sign, positive sign turns black, what you can do is you can click and you can drag down the page, and that will copy the pattern down the page. So if I do this, it will copy that one thing over and over again down the page so that I can have the same thing there. Now this can also be done to patterns. So you could extend a pattern down a stage. You have to start the pattern and then you can do it. So say I put a bunch of dates, or else I just put a bunch of numbers. So if I start here with 1, 2, 3, 4, what I can do is you'll see that I can highlight this pattern. And if I want to extend this pattern out, I can do the same thing where I go to the very corner of this and I click and I drag it down. And what's going to happen is it's going to continue that pattern for me. The same thing can be done for dates. So if I put September 5, September 6, and usually it doesn't take that many. It could usually do it in 2 to extend this pattern. I can extend it out and it'll actually go into the next month. So it'll extend into like October, November, December, and it'll continue to expand on that pattern. The other thing that can be done is this can be done in different kind of, I guess, multiples. So if I did 1, 3, 6, right? I could actually, let's do 0, 6, whatever. I don't know what I'd have to do to extend this out. I can now extend this pattern and it will give me every single multiple of 3. So this can be done in any pattern you want that kind of makes feasible sense. If it's already in a pattern, you can extend it and continue that pattern. So that's a really, really handy tool, especially I find this is really helpful for me when I'm doing dates because it gets exhausting to type in the dates and you just literally drag it down and you get the whole month there after typing in just 2 dates, which is really nice. Now, if for some reason you wanted to copy data from one cell to another, this is also quite simple. You can select the cell you want to copy or the cells you want to copy. So in this case, I'll just copy a bunch of them. And what you'll do is you'll just click Command C on a Mac, and I guess that's Control C on a Windows computer. So you do your regular copy command. The other thing you can do is just right click on it and click copy or cut if you want to cut it. And then you'll know it's copied when you have this kind of, you'll see this rotating, this flashing, whatever you like to call it, highlight line around it. And then you can go anywhere else and paste that. Yep. Paste that information elsewhere. So it will copy that information over if you ever need to do that. Now, those are kind of like some of the basics. The other great thing about Excel is that it can also do math for you. So if you're adding expenses or adding numbers up, you can do them right within the app into the cell. So say I wanted to do a simple equation. What you do is you start by going to the cell you want to do the equation in, and you start by clicking the equal button on your keyboard. Once I click the equal button, that will tell Excel that I'm trying to create a math equation, basically. From there, I can enter any sort of equation I like. It can't be too complicated, but it can be any pretty much simple equation it can handle, and I could enter that information. So say I want to do 5 plus 5, I could do 5, and then I would click the plus symbol and then 5, and once I click enter on the cell, it will have done that math for me. That will now say 10. Now, if I go back to it, I can see, so right here it says 10, but if I look up here, this is the function that I put in there. I can see what the equation was that led there. So you can always go back and click on it up here or double click on the cell. And when you double click on it, you'll see the original equation and I could add something to it and that would give me that new equation. Now you can do it by entering those things in manually. The other thing you can do is add stuff up by hand. So say I wanted to add the total of all these numbers. I would do the same thing. I would start my equation with the equal button, and then I could select a cell. And again, this kind of works with the same thing with patterns, but I could select all of these cells here. And what it's going to do is it's going to, wrong thing, I have to do equal this plus and then select, I think, other cells. I think that should work. So in this case, I have to do this and then plus, and I can add multiple cells together. And then I can get the total of that. And when I click on it, I'm seeing the totals of these 3 cells added. So you could go like, to make this more complicated, we could go equals 3 plus 6 times, which is the star asterisk button, 9, and I could get that total for that equation as well. And now that's a kind of a more manual way of doing it. There's also a way in which you can find the sum of a total series of numbers more easily. So in order to do that, you can add cell values. And the way you do that is you highlight a bunch of cells. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, sorry, oh, it's right here. I'm going to go to this little symbol here, this equation symbol, this sum total. And if I click sum, it's going to give me the sum of all of those cells right down here. Now I can also do other things here. So the preset one that's there is the sum total of everything. So again, I click it and I get the sum right below it. But I can also do things like find the average. So if I click the arrow right next to this button, I can do, I want the average. That will give me the average of all these numbers. Otherwise, I can say I want the maximum, I want the minimum, and you can also go into here, more functions, and it will give you all these different, I don't know what most of these mean, but if you do, great. You'll get all of these functions that you can select from and insert into it and choose from. So that's really handy, especially say you were doing your groceries for your expenses for the month and you didn't feel like adding these all manually. I just click sum and now I know all my expenses listed right there, which is super handy. Now, just a quick note that the symbols in terms of doing simple equations, again, you always start with equal, but the different things you can use are the plus button, of course. You can use the dash as or the hyphen as a minus. You use the asterisk, so that little star is the multiplication, and you use the / button as divide. So just note, those are the things you use to create an equation. So like I said, plus, minus, of course, asterisk is multiplication, and the / button is division. Oops. Oh my God. Great. Now, if I entered a bunch of information and say I wanted to create a chart for it, so I have this chart here that compares the number of dogs to the number of horses, and I wanted to create a chart out of it. All I would have to do is highlight all of my data here, and I highlighted everything I want to be included in a chart, and then I will do on a Windows computer, Alt F1, or else if I'm on a Mac computer, I will do Function Option F1. And when I do that, it's going to create a chart. Now that's how you do it with the shortcut. There's also a manual way of doing it. So if I select those things, I can just go to the Insert tab right up here, and we'll see that I can select from up here all of these sorts of charts. So in this case, it will choose kind of the most obvious chart to use. So in this case, it would use like maybe a bar graph. But if I wanted to select a pie graph or a line chart or something, I can select that. So I'll just select this, and I can select how I want it to be formatted. Let's go with this. And we'll see here is this chart here. And basically, you can choose any kind of chart you want to create. I'm going to go back to this bar graph. Now, if you did this and you want to change it after the fact, you'll just go to up here and you'll see that you can change the chart type. So I could change this again to a line graph, whatever I wanted, and I could see my numbers and everything here. Now, if you want to kind of customize this, you can change the size of it. You can also, in fact, copy this. And if I copy this chart and say I went into a Word document, I'd actually be able to just paste that chart right in there. So it works. It might not work if you're doing like from Excel to Google Docs, but within like Microsoft, or if you're in the Google products, within those kinds of similar products, you can pretty easily just copy and paste things like this. It just turns it into here, and you can actually even edit it from here as well, which is nice. But anyway, if you're on here, you can start to customize it. So you can do things like add chart elements. So if I wanted to add data labels, I could. I want to add axis titles. We can add axis titles here, and I can change what they're called. We can also do some layout things. I can add some layouts, and we can change stuff like the color format. So you can kind of change the general color of it here, and then over here you can change how those colors are represented. So here we have kind of this gray background. Here we can do it against a black backdrop, stuff like that to customize your chart. You can also do stuff like switch the row column thing. So this will switch how we are viewing the data here. If we switch how this is, how it's been represented on the chart. And you can also choose to select the data. So this is a bit more complex, but if you go into select data, basically, I can select my Y values by clicking here and just highlighting what I want to do. So right now I'm highlighted this, but I could switch it to here or something, and then click enter, and that's now my, okay, and that's now my Y value. So you can do stuff like that, go in here and change basically all of the ways your chart is formatted. And this can just be left here, it can be exported, but for now, I'm just going to delete it. Now, next. Now, if you say you are tracking your, say, expenses, and this is, and you want to like kind of separate it by month or maybe by category of expense, but you don't want to do it within the same spreadsheet, you can also create separate sheets within this file. So I have this sheet, which we'll call, say we'll call this just, we'll do it by month. Say this is October. So these are my October expenses, but I want to separate them out from my September expenses. You can create a new sheet, and you can do that by clicking this little plus button down here. And what will happen is I'll get a new sheet that I can double click on and rename. And then I can separate these out. So I can do this separately for each month. That way it doesn't get too cluttered. Even though you have kind of endless space here to add data to, you might not want to because it will just look really cluttered and kind of be hard to navigate. So you can always create new sheets within your document to enter new information into, which is really nice. And then you can very easily toggle between them in the same document. And as I said, I don't know if I explained this properly, when you do a new one, in order to rename it, you just double click on the sheet down here and you can select and rename the title of that sheet. Now, the other really helpful tool in here, the last thing I'll kind of cover here is macros. So what macros are is they're basically, they're saved data sets that you can save and reuse in new sheets. So say you were doing your expenses and every month you were putting at the top, you were putting category, the vendor, I don't know, is that how you spell vendor? Oh my God. And the expense, right? So you're doing that every month, but you don't, and maybe it's longer than this. If this was it, you would probably find it quite easy, but you had this whole axis of things that you didn't want to have to redo, or maybe it was more complicated than this, and you wanted to also copy equations that you were using to track your expenses. What you can do is you can create a macro, and basically what a macro does is it saves items that you're going to use often. So it saves data sets that you're going to be using a lot within your Excel sheet. So you don't have to always go back and refine it and copy and paste it or else retype it. So to create a macro, what you're going to do is, if it's not set up yet, sometimes you have to enable it. So if macros are not enabled yet, what you're going to have to do is go to Excel right up here. If it's not, I don't know what this would look like on a Windows, but it may be in your file. So you'll go here and you'll go to your preferences. So I'm going to go to my preferences, and within here, I'm going to go to the ribbon area. So if I can find that. So ribbon and toolbar. And here we'll see all of the things that I have access to. And then I'm going to go look for something called the developer. So this is not on right now. So this is just a tool that's available in the developer tab. So if it's not on, you won't be able to access it. So you just want to select developer and save it. Now that is on, so I can use my macros. So now it is here. That new kind of tab has shown up right here, and I can click on it and I can use all the developer tools, one of which is macros. So I want to create a macros. The first thing I am going to do is click record macro. So I'll click record macro. What it's going to do, so I'll highlight what I want to create. I'll record macro, and I can name it expenses. And I can store the macro in this workbook, in a new workbook, or a personal macro workbook. So that just means if I save it just to this workbook, it means it won't be accessible in like in other Excel files I've created, just this one. But I think if I do personal macro workbook, then that means it's saved across all of my files, so I can always use it in Excel. This one we'll just keep in this workbook. Now you can describe it, so you just know exactly what it is. If this is not, if the name itself is not clear enough to what you want it to be, do that. You can also add a shortcut key. It's not necessary to add a shortcut key, but you can add one. So let's make this Option Command G. If it's already a shortcut that's used in some other form, then you won't be able to use it, but I don't think Option Command G is a thing. So I'll click OK. And it's going to record it. So what I can do now is I can start basically, this is how it works. I can start typing. And it's going to save all my actions. So I'll record, and once I'm done filling in all the things I wanted to record, I'll just click stop recording. And now I can go to my macros here, and I can see that this has been saved here. Now I did create a shortcut for it, but I can also use it not with the shortcut, so I could actually click it and run the macro. It should work. Nope. Great. I must have done that. Okay, I somehow did that wrong. 1 second. Weird.
Does it take into account the row, or does it?
No, I don't think. Oh, let's see. You might be correct on that. Yeah, so it has to be in the same row. So it has to be in the exact same format you did it in. So if I tried to do it down here, I suppose. No, it worked. It was just being weird for a second. Okay, so it works now. Yeah, I guess it takes into account the row and column. So if I did it here, right, it would only show, it would, oh my God, sorry, I can't see anything because this Zoom thing has popped up in my way. So if I did it in this row here, you'll see that it's only giving me that 12 because it's only accounting for this. And if I did it here, it would only give me the 12 there. So yeah, it's accounting for that. So you just have to make sure that you do it. It's in the same spot that you did it last time. And now I can use that, or else use that. So you kind of have to start at the top corner in order for it to use it. So you can't like click down here. You have to start from the top left corner to get the effect that it goes where you originally had put it, I guess is how it works. So that's macros. So again, that's maybe too complicated to use. Maybe just copy and paste, but you can use it to copy basically other functions that you've done before so that you don't have to continually type in the same like categories every single time you create a new sheet and you want to add the same exact kind of formatting of data in there. So there's a few ways in which you can easily sort stuff. So say, say I did something and it was, yeah, it was like, we'll just put a bunch of letters in here to make it so we can do it alphabetical. So a few things you can do is you can like highlight the field and then do sort and filter. So from here, I can just do it, say like alphabetically, and it will,
Oh,
should,
because you have merged cells.
right. Uh,
Well, that column A could be the last name of the author.
Yeah, exactly. So it just worked. So if I select it, right, I can select it either by the column, and then if it's a last name and I want to sort that alphabetically, I just go here and I can
Yep.
sort it from A to Z, A to Z,
And
or I can do a custom sort.
it will bring along all of the titles by each of the authors. It'll sort
Yes.
the
So
rest of
so I think if I have like, say I have like corresponding things here, yeah, it's not going to mess it up. If I did this and then I wanted to sort this alphabetically, it will move along. So now see the 7 is up here. It will move along the numbers with the appropriate, like the appropriate other columns along with the one I'm sorting. So it won't screw it all up. The other thing you can do besides, and you can do like a custom sort. So I'm not like, you can do like if you colored them or something, you can do it that way. You can also do find and select. So this is another thing you can use. If you click this, I can Google, sorry, not Google, I can search this and it will show me where it's showing up so now it's highlighting down here because it's showing that I wrote it there. So you can also just search for it within the document.